I want to take you back to a night in New York, in the years when I had nothing, no money to speak of, no name anyone would recognize, nothing but a room, a hunger for truth, and a teacher named Abdullah. It was winter, the kind of New York winter that gets into your bones and stays there. I had been dreaming for weeks of Barbados, the warmth of it, the sea, the light. I climbed the stairs to Abdullah's rooms, the way I climbed them so many evenings that year, and I told him what I wanted. I said, "Ab, I want to spend the winter in Barbados." He looked at me the way he always looked at me when I was about to say something foolish, and I said it anyway. I said, "But Ab, I have no money. I want you to feel the weight of that sentence, because it is the same sentence you have said this week, in one form or another. Maybe not about Barbados, maybe about the raise, the relationship, the healing, the home you want, but you have said your version of, 'I have no money.' You have stated the fact, and let the fact instruct you." Abdullah did not argue with me. He did not sit me down and reason it through. He did not say, "Let's discuss how this could happen." He simply said, "Neville, you are in Barbados." And when I protested, when I said it again, the fact, the lack, the impossibility, he rose from his chair, walked into his own room, and shut the door in my face. No comfort, no plan, no discussion of how, just a closed door. I stood there in that hallway for a long moment, a young man, cold, confused, a little embarrassed. And I want to tell you, that closed door taught me more than any book I had read up to that point in my life. Abdullah would not stand in the room with my doubt. He would not dignify it with his attention. He loved me too much to argue with my lack, so he simply left me alone with it, and let the silence ask me the only question that mattered. Which are you going to keep, the fact or the wish? That is where I want to begin tonight, because that closed door is the entire teaching. Everything I am going to tell you in the next hour is contained in it. Now let me speak to you directly, because I can see you. I have taught this law for the whole of my adult life, and I know the particular shape of the person who finds their way to a teaching like this one, at an hour like this one. You are not a beginner. You have not failed to imagine. In fact, I would say you have imagined beautifully. You have felt for a moment the reality of the thing you want. You have closed your eyes and felt the wish fulfilled, felt it so clearly that for a few seconds you believed it. And then, and this is the part I want you to really hear, you have argued with your own image. You assumed the wish fulfilled at 10 in the morning, and by noon you were back at the bank statement. You felt the relationship healed for one warm moment before bed, and then you woke and reread the last unanswered text. You have been living a double life every single day, a few minutes as the one who has it, and the rest of the day as the one who doesn't. This is not a manifestation problem. I want to be very precise about that, because most people misdiagnose it. It is not that your imagination is too weak, or your faith too small, or your desire not pure enough. It is an inner speech problem. Doubt, as I have taught for decades, is not really an emotion at all. Doubt is a conversation. It is the sentence you keep repeating to yourself, quietly, underneath the surface of the day. The sentence that says, "Not yet, not you, not this way." And you have been having that conversation far more faithfully than you have been having the other one. I wrote in Feeling is the Secret that the subconscious never fails to express that which has been impressed upon it. It does not weigh your reasons. It does not ask whether the fact is true. It simply takes the feeling you keep returning to, and it makes of that feeling a world. So when you spend 1 minute assuming and 59 minutes arguing, you are not 50% faithful. You are, for that hour, a person instructing their own depths toward the very thing they fear. And here is what I want you to release yourself from right now, tonight, before we go one step further. Stop trying so hard to believe. I mean that precisely. Trying to believe is itself a confession that you do not believe. It is the strain of a mind still standing outside the door, pushing against it, instead of a mind that has already walked through and is sitting comfortably on the other side. The strain is the leak. Every time you strain to convince yourself, you are proving, by the very act of straining, that some part of you still lives in the old state and is trying to persuade itself out of it by force. Force never persuades. Only occupation persuades. So let us go back to Barbados, because the resolution of that story is the resolution of your night tonight. After Abdullah shut that door, I did not go home and make a plan. There was no plan to make. I had no money. That part of the fact had not changed. What changed was far simpler and, at the time, far stranger to me. I stopped stating the lack. I stopped rehearsing it to myself, to friends, to anyone who would listen. And at night, when I lay down to sleep, I did something Abdullah had shown me, without ever writing it down as a technique. I began to sleep as though I were already there, not thinking about Barbados. Not planning Barbados, feeling it. The warm air on my skin, the motion of the ship under me, the particular blue of that water. I fell asleep, night after night, inside the assumption that I was already home in that island, rather than a poor young man in New York dreaming about it. Weeks passed. Nothing appeared to change on the outside, and then, not through any plan I had made, not through any hustle or scheme, an avenue opened that I had entirely forgotten was even there. A relative I had lost touch with, a passage arranged, and I sailed. I want you to notice the order of events, because the order is the whole lesson. The circumstance came after the state. It did not come before it, and it did not come because I finally found the right plan. It came because I had stopped negotiating with the fact and started occupying the wish. Abdullah closed that door on my doubt so that I would learn to close it myself every single night without him standing there to do it for me. Now, before I go one sentence further into how this works, there is something I need from you, and I want to ask you for it directly, the way Abdullah would have asked, without hedging. There is one word I want you to leave in the comments below this video, right now, before you keep listening. Not a paragraph, not your story. I want to hear your story another time, and I read every one of them. Just one word tonight, rewrite. Comment that single word, rewrite, and I will personally reply to you with a link to something I have written for exactly this moment you are in. Do it now, before the rest of this teaching pulls you back under the water of your own thoughts and you forget you meant to. I am not asking you to do me a favor. When you comment rewrite, you are claiming something. A free guide I have called Rewrite Tonight. Type the word now. I will wait for you here. Here is why I am stopping the teaching to ask you this. What I have shown you so far, the closed door, the inner conversation, the state occupied instead of visited. This is one movement. Only one. There are four, and every true night's work rests on all four together. There is revision, which clears the soil of the day. There is the correction of inner speech, the silent talking that instructs the subconscious far more than your grand affirmations do. There is precise scene construction, a real scene, specific and sensory, not a vague wish floating in the air. And there is falling asleep inside the state, the actual transfer, the moment consciousness crosses over from the visitor to the resident. You have likely been doing one of these, perhaps two on your better nights, and you have wondered why the feeling that felt so real at bedtime is gone by morning, replaced by the same old weather of doubt. It is not gone because the law failed you. It fades because the sequence was never completed. You gave your subconscious a partial instruction, and a partial instruction produces a partial result, a flicker of belief instead of a fact. Before Abdullah ever taught me a scene, before he taught me a single affirmation, he made me master one thing, and one thing only: revision before sleep. He would not let me move forward until that was solid. I have taken that exact practice, the one he insisted on before anything else, and I have written it into a short, free guide called Rewrite Tonight. It is not a summary of what I've said here. It is a complete 3-minute pre-sleep protocol, how to choose the 3 moments from your day that are quietly poisoning your rest, how to revise each one so your subconscious carries a clean record into the night instead of a contaminated one, and how to actually feel the clearing that finally lets every other technique you know reach down into the depths where it can do its work. It is free. It is immediate. It is the step everything else depends on, and it is waiting for you at the first link in the description below this video. Open it tonight, or comment the word rewrite, and I will send it to you myself. And for those of you who already feel it in yourselves as I speak, who know, somewhere beneath the surface, that the clearing alone is not the whole of what you need, who are ready for the complete transfer that exists as well, you will see it the moment you open the guide. 7 nights, 4 movements. The exact order Abdullah gave it to me, one piece at a time, never rushing me past the piece before it. But do not reach for that tonight. Start with the clearing. Start where I started. Take the first link in the description and open it tonight, or comment rewrite below, and I will hand it to you personally, not as a comment, as a decision. You are done lying down each night carrying the full weight of an unrevised day. You are done planting seeds of a new wish in soil you have never once cleared of yesterday's failures. Comment rewrite, or open the link, and begin exactly where I began, on those cold New York nights, at the bottom of the stairs to Abdullah's room. Now, let us go back into the mechanism itself, because I want you to understand, not vaguely but precisely, why doubt has had such a hold on you, and why the correction is so much simpler than you have made it. I wrote, in The Power of Awareness, a sentence I have repeated in more lecture halls than I can count. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. I want you to sit with that sentence, because most people hear it and think only of the good assumptions, the wish fulfilled, the healed body, the reunited love. But the law makes no such distinction. It does not check whether the assumption is one you want. It simply hardens whatever is persisted in. Doubt is an assumption. It is the assumption of not yet. It is the assumption that the good thing you want is somewhere out ahead of you, separated from you by time, by effort, by proof not yet supplied. And if that assumption is persisted in, even quietly, even without a single dramatic thought, just repeated in the background of an ordinary day, it hardens exactly as surely as the assumption of the wish fulfilled hardens. This is why so many people who call themselves realists, who pride themselves on seeing things as they are, find that things continue, decade after decade, to be exactly as they are. They have been the most faithful practitioners of this law who ever lived. They simply practiced it in reverse. So you cannot kill doubt by arguing with it. I need you to release that strategy entirely, because it is the strategy you have been running, and it has never once worked for you, and it never will for anyone. To argue with doubt is to remain in the courtroom where doubt has jurisdiction, the courtroom of facts, of evidence, of what has or has not yet appeared. You cannot win a case in that courtroom because the facts, by definition, describe only what has already been. The facts can never rule in favor of what has not yet crystallized, because that is the one thing they are constitutionally incapable of seeing. You are not going to defeat doubt with a better argument. You are going to defeat it by leaving the courtroom. That is what Abdullah did to me on those stairs. He would not argue the case of Barbados. He would not sit and weigh, with me, whether the money might come from this source or that one. He simply told me where I already was. You are in Barbados. And when I would not accept the verdict, he left the room rather than continue trying the case. He starved the doubt of an audience. That is the whole secret. Doubt, like every state, requires your attention to survive. It cannot feed on silence. It can only feed on your willingness to keep discussing it, keep defending against it, keep proving it wrong one more time, which paradoxically is the very thing that keeps it alive, because attention is creative, and you are always, in that very moment, becoming that to which you give your attention. I wrote in feeling is the secret that feeling is the secret, and I meant something very exact by that. The subconscious does not receive your words. It receives your feeling. You can say the affirmation of wealth in the most confident voice you can manufacture, and if underneath it you feel the tightness, the contraction, the old familiar ache of not enough, that feeling is what gets impressed. Doubt does not need to win an argument to instruct your depths. It only needs you to keep feeling it, over and over, in the unguarded hours of an ordinary day. This is why doubt so rarely announces itself loudly. It is quiet. It rides along under 100 small moments. The glance at the bank balance, the silence of the phone, the look on someone's face, and each one deposits its little feeling, and the deposits accumulate faster than any single nightly affirmation can withdraw them. So the fastest way to kill doubt forever is not to build a bigger faith through effort and strain. It is to stop consulting the evidence and let the felt assumption harden on its own, the way anything hardens, through repetition, through time, through the simple absence of interference. You do not have to force concrete to set. You only have to stop poking at it while it cures. Every time you go back to the facts to check whether your assumption is working yet, you are poking the concrete. You are the only one interrupting your own hardening. This is what I mean when I say the kill shot has two movements, not one. First, you clear the day's contradictory record. This is revision, and I will show you exactly how in a few minutes. Second, you persist in the end, undisturbed, at the one threshold where the depths are actually listening, the edge of sleep, the drowsy border between waking and dreaming, where the analytical mind, that loves to argue finally, mercifully, lets go of the wheel. Doubt does not die in a single moment of willpower, no matter how badly you might wish that were so. It dies in the repetition of a clean assumption, offered at that threshold, night after night, until there is simply no room left in your consciousness for the old conversation to be spoken. Let me bring you now into the first of 4 truths I want to leave with you tonight, because each one answers a specific way this shows up in your life, and I want you to recognize your own face in at least one of them. The doubt you keep answering is the doubt you keep alive. I want to say that in a way that startles you a little, because it should. Fighting your doubt is the surest way to feed it. This runs against everything most people have been taught about willpower, about facing your fears, about confronting what troubles you. But the law of assumption does not operate on the rules of therapy or motivation. It operates on the rule of attention. Whatever state you occupy with your attention, you are in that moment living from, not thinking about, living from. So when doubt arrives and you turn to face it, to reason with it, to marshal your evidence against it, you have just moved your address. You are now, for those minutes, residing in the state of the doubter, gathering proof for the doubter's case, speaking the doubter's language fluently and with feeling. It does not matter that your stated goal was to defeat the doubt. Your position, your dwelling place, was still doubt. I think of Abdullah shutting that door every time I teach this, because it is the cleanest illustration I have ever lived through. He did not sit with me and refute, "I have no money." He did not say, but consider this possibility, or that connection, or this plan." He refused the conversation altogether. He killed the doubt not by defeating it in argument, but by declining to argue at all. He went and occupied another room, literally and spiritually, the room where the wish was already true, and left me standing alone in the room I had built with my own sentence. So here is what I want you to stop doing, starting tonight. Stop rebutting your doubt. When the thought comes, "This is taking too long, this isn't working," look at the account, look at the calendar, look at the silence. Do not answer it. Do not build the counter-argument, however tempting, however true it may feel in the moment. Simply return, without comment, to the felt assumption of the end. Treat the doubtful thought exactly as Abdullah treated my protest on those stairs, as something you are not going to stand in the room with. You are not required to disprove every thought that crosses your mind. You are only required to decide, again and again, which room you are going to live in. This takes practice, because the mind loves to argue, and there is a strange comfort in the argument, even when you are losing it. But every time you catch yourself mid-rebuttal and simply let it go, return, instead, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You are doing exactly what Abdullah did on those stairs. You are shutting the door. Now let me bring you to the second truth, because it corrects an error I have watched sincere, intelligent people make for as long as I have taught. Certainty is not a feeling you find. It is a state you enter and refuse to leave. And here is the part that will unsettle you a little. You have been waiting to feel certain before you allow yourself to act certain. You have it backwards. Most people treat certainty like weather, something that either shows up or doesn't, something you check for each morning, the way you'd check the sky before deciding whether to bring an umbrella. If the certainty is there, they proceed with the assumption. If it isn't, they wait, telling themselves they'll begin the assumption once the feeling arrives. But that feeling of certainty you are waiting for is not a precondition of assumption. It is the fruit of it. I wrote that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact, and the hardening is precisely the appearance of that felt certainty. It comes after the persistence, through the persistence, as its natural result. You do not wait for the fruit before planting the seed. You plant, you tend, and in time, the fruit that was never there at the beginning simply appears, because it was always the outcome of the tending, not its cause. I think here of a story I have told in lecture halls many times, because it is such a plain, unglamorous demonstration of this law. The man earning $600 a month who wanted more, and who came to understand what I am telling you now. He did not wait until he felt like a man worth a higher wage before he began to speak and think and carry himself as one. He felt, if anything, the opposite at the start, the familiar tightness, the old modest self-estimate, the habitual doubt about whether such a thing was even reasonable to expect. But he changed the inner conversation regardless of what he felt. He began night after night to assume the state of the man already earning the greater sum. He revised his self-talk during the day whenever it slipped back into the old modest arithmetic. He persisted, not because he felt certain, but because he had decided the assumption came first, and the feeling would follow, and the raise came, not because he waited for confidence to arrive as a gift, but because he built it, the way you build anything worth having, through repetition before the reward. So I want you to stop auditing your feelings each night for proof that you truly believe. That audit is exactly the kind of consulting the facts we already exposed as the leak. You do not need to feel entirely certain before you occupy the state of the wish fulfilled. You need only occupy it deliberately, specifically, with as much sensory reality as you can bring to it, regardless of how uncertain you feel walking in. Certainty is not the entrance fee. It is what waits for you at the far end of the corridor, once you've walked it enough times that the walking itself has become who you are. Let me move now into the third truth, because this one is, in some ways, the most practical of the four, and it is the one Abdullah insisted on before anything else, the one at the very center of the guide I mentioned to you earlier. Doubt cannot survive a clean night's record. And here is the reframe I want to leave burned into your memory. Your doubt is not really about the future at all. It only wears the future's clothing. What it actually is, underneath, is the residue of today, replayed at the wrong hour. I have taught, across many lectures, that your inner conversations are perpetually written upon the fabric of your world. That sentence is not decoration. It is a description of mechanism. Every inner conversation you have, the ones you have with the coworker who slighted you, the ones you rehearse defending yourself to someone who hasn't even asked, the ones where you replay the disappointing phone call again and again, adding new and better retorts each time. Every one of those conversations is being impressed on the same depths that receive your assumption of the wish fulfilled. And whichever set of conversations is more vivid, more emotionally charged, more frequently repeated, wins the impression for that day. This is why so many sincere people do their 5 minutes of visualization at night and feel, quite genuinely, the wish fulfilled, and then lie there for the next 40 minutes, silently replaying the friction of the day, without even noticing they've switched rooms. They think they did their revision. They did their 5 minutes of assumption. But they handed the subconscious 45 minutes of the unrevised day as well. And the larger portion, unrevised, is what got carried across the threshold. This is why doubt can feel so stubborn even in people who genuinely practice this law. It is not that their assumption was too weak, it is that they never cleared the contaminated record standing right beside it. Revision exists precisely for this. Before sleep, before your scene of the wish fulfilled, you review the day, not to relive it, but to correct it. You take the moments that stung, the exchanges that went wrong, the instances where you played the smaller, doubting self, and you revise them deliberately, in imagination, until they conform to the self you actually intend to be, not because you are lying to yourself about what happened in the room that day, but because what happened, to your subconscious, is not the external event at all. It is the version you finally settle on and feel as true, the version you carry into sleep. Revision changes which version that is. So stop replaying the day exactly as it occurred, turning it over and over the way a tongue returns to a sore tooth. That habit, however involuntary it feels, is choosing which day gets impressed. Instead, before sleep, take the moments that stung and rewrite them, see them, briefly, as they happened, and then, deliberately, let them unfold instead as they would have had your wish already been true. Feel the relief of the corrected version. Then sleep. This one habit alone. And I want you to hear how simple I am making this, because it is simple, clears more doubt in a single week than months of effort spent trying to think more positively during the day. This is precisely the practice I have written out, step by step, 3 moments at a time, in Rewrite Tonight, because Abdullah would not let me touch anything else until this alone was second nature to me. Now the fourth truth, and I want you to feel the compassion in this one, because it is meant for exactly the hour you might be in right now, the hour of nothing is happening. The delay you fear is the assumption already hardening. The silence you have been reading as failure is, in fact, the state setting. I have spoken often of what I call the bridge of incidents, the idea that the events of your life have crossed a bridge of incidents that you yourself constructed, long before those events appeared on the visible side of your life. An assumption, truly persisted in, must express itself. It cannot fail to. But it expresses itself through a natural sequence, a chain of ordinary-looking events that has to form, link by link, largely out of your sight, before it reaches the far shore where you can finally see it. During the time that bridge is being built, from your vantage point, nothing appears to be happening. The facts still say no. The calendar still says not yet. And this is precisely the moment when doubt makes its strongest case, because doubt always points to the visible present as though the visible present were the whole of the story. Go back with me to Barbados one more time, because it holds this lesson perfectly. After Abdullah shut that door, weeks passed in which nothing on the surface of my life changed at all. I still had no money. No opportunity presented itself in any form I could have predicted or planned for. If I had judged by the facts during those weeks, I would have concluded, reasonably, that the assumption had failed, that Abdullah's teaching, however beautiful, simply did not apply to a poor young man with no prospects. But I did not judge by the facts. I kept sleeping, night after night, in the state of a man already arrived. And then, without warning, an avenue I had entirely forgotten opened. Family I had lost contact with, a passage that had nothing to do with any plan I had devised. The bridge had been building the entire time the facts said no. I simply could not see the construction from where I stood. So I want you to reframe every quiet day you have lived through recently. Every day where nothing seemed to move, where the wish still felt distant, where you were tempted to conclude the law had somehow made an exception of you. Treat that silence not as evidence of denial, but as confirmation that the hardening is proceeding exactly as it must. Underground, out of sight, the way every real foundation is laid before anyone can see the building rise. The bridge is not late. You are simply standing at a point on it where the far shore has not yet come into view. Now I want to bring all of this down into one act, something you can do tonight, this very night, when you lay your head down, so that everything I have said stops being an idea in your mind and becomes an experience in your body. Do not, tonight, try to build some grand and complicated future in your imagination. That is not what tonight calls for. Take one single moment from today, just one, where doubt spoke to you. It might have been a glance at your bank balance, a discouraging word from someone whose opinion you weighed too heavily, the silence of a phone that did not ring. Choose the one that stung the most. Replay it once, briefly, exactly as it happened, just once. Do not linger there. Do not relive the sting for its own sake. Then stop and rewrite that single scene as it would have unfolded had your wish already been fulfilled. See the different faces. Hear the different words spoken. Feel in your body the relief and the ease of that corrected version as vividly as you felt the original sting. Once that one scene is revised and settled, move into a short scene of the wish fulfilled, not vague, not abstract, but one specific moment that implies the wish is already yours. The handshake that confirms it, the particular word congratulations, spoken by a particular voice. the key turning in the door of the home you want. Hold that one small, specific scene, and let it be the last thing your mind touches as you drift. Do not visit it the way a tourist visits a place he does not live. Occupy it the way you occupy your own bedroom, without a trace of wonder that you are there. Sleep is the door through which the assumption enters the depths. Enter that door clean. This one pass, one revised moment, one scene of fulfillment, carried into sleep, is a complete act in itself. It is one clean movement of the fuller sequence. And the fuller version, the exact three-moment method, Abdullah drilled into me before he would teach me anything further, the one that clears the whole of the day rather than a single moment, is written out for you, step by step, in Rewrite Tonight. Tonight, though, do this one thing. Do it completely. Do it deeply. That is enough to begin the hardening you have been waiting for. Let me close with something I want you to carry with you long after this video ends, because I suspect some of you have been waiting these past weeks for the law to prove itself to you, and have quietly begun to wonder whether it has forgotten you. It has not forgotten you. The waiting, the silence, the sense that nothing is happening, this is not the law failing to work. This is the law working in the only direction it has ever known how to work, from within, outward. Nothing appears in the without until it has first been settled, without argument, in the within. The delay you have been enduring is the bridge being built beneath your feet, plank by plank, in a darkness you were never meant to see into. And the doubt that visited you today, the doubt that will likely visit you again tomorrow, is nothing more than the old state protesting its own eviction. States do not leave quietly. They were, after all, your residents for a long time. Do not mistake their protest for the truth of your situation. You have not been abandoned by this law. You have been standing, this whole time, inside its patience. I want to leave you with a line I want you to return to, not tonight, but later, after what you have assumed has become what you can now touch, hold, and hand to someone else as proof. Come back to this exact night. Remember that you stopped arguing. Remember that you slept clean. And know, when you look back, that it was here, not on the day the thing finally appeared, but here, on this ordinary night, when you closed the door on your own doubt, the way Abdullah once closed it on mine, that it turned. There is a deeper reason your assumptions harden faster on some nights than others, and once you understand it, doubt will not merely die more quickly. It will stop forming at all. In the next teaching, I am going to show you the one condition Abdullah insisted on before any assumption was allowed to take root, a state akin to sleep, the drowsy threshold where the reasoning mind finally lets go and the deeper mind is at its most malleable. Because the truth I want you to sit with until we meet again is this: the reason your revision sometimes takes hold instantly and other times seems to slip away by morning was never about what you were assuming. It was always about how deeply within yourself you were standing when you assumed it.